So I'm a big time fan of the Beatles. I'm not one of those individuals who knows every single song by them on exactly which album they're on, but I'm a big time fan of them. They're the reason that I have that drum set and those guitars back there. They were my biggest influence growing up, and they hold a very, very special place in my heart. I truly believe that the Beatles are magical. There's no other band on earth like them. The combination of John, Paul, George, and Ringo was just the perfect combination for an artist group. So in this video, I decided let's do a tier list ranking these albums, because there's some fantastic albums by them. There's some that are okay. Some of their earlier stuff isn't the strongest, but I figured let's rank it all on a tier list. It's maybe controversial because, again, I'm not the biggest know-it-all of their whole discography, so I may have to pull up some of their track lists just to reference here. But if you're going to take a look, here is our tier list today. We have Abbey Road, Help, Let It Be, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, The White Album, Beatles for Sale, A Hard Day's Night, Yellow Submarine, Please Please Me, With the Beatles, Magical Mystery Tour, and Rubber Soul. So out of all these, you have some fantastic standout albums. Now on the side over here, we have S tier, which is nearly perfect. It's influential. It's just the best thing ever. A is great. B is good. C is mid, like okay. D is not my favorite. Now mind you, I want to say off the bat that all the Beatles albums, literally every single one of them on this list, are fantastic to me. Even at its worst, they are still amazing. So I just want to preface with that because, you know, I don't want it to be too controversial where it's like, oh, you don't like this album, yada yada. I mean, it is my opinion, but all the Beatles albums are great, so I'm not gonna try to argue that. So let's jump right in. We're gonna go with the first one on this list. I am putting Beatles for Sale in D tier. And honestly, it's because there's not too much that stands out on this album compared to the rest of their discography. I mean, you have No Reply, I'm a Loser, Babies in Black, and if you see, I'm actually reading the track list because this is how forgetful of the album it is. Rock and Roll Music, I'll Follow the Sun, which is one of my favorite Beatles songs, Mr. Moonlight, Kansas City, and then on side 2 you have 8 Days a Week, which is okay, Words of Love, Honey Don't, Everything, Every Little Thing, I Don't Want to Spoil the Party, What You're Doing, and Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. And honestly, out of all those songs, there's only 2 to me that stand out, and that's I'll Follow the Sun and 8 Days a Week. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but I really think that there's only a couple songs on here that truly stand out. It is by far the most forgetful Beatles album, so I'm very content with keeping it down here. There's only one other album that I'm gonna put in D tier, and that's Yellow Submarine, because it's not like, it's a Beatles album, yeah, but not really. Honestly, I can't really tell you much on there. I've listened to it maybe once, and I think that goes to show that it's nothing special. I've heard the songs on there, the rest is some like weird stuff, so you know, I'd say this is like the exception, and everything else is a real album. This, honestly, is just like a movie soundtrack, and it wasn't even strong. It really shouldn't be on the list, but since it is, I'm gonna put it on. Yellow Submarine is at a D tier for me. Let's see, we have Magical Mystery Tour, Rubber Soul with the Beatles. I don't know why I can't remember much of what's on with the Beatles. So maybe I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but let's go to Magical Mystery Tour. I'm going to be putting Magical Mystery Tour in B. It's a good album. Everything on here is pretty strong. It's a little too psychedelic-y. It's a little too goofy for me for like the top tier. That being said, it's a good album. I mean, like I said, you have Magical Mystery Tour, you have Strawberry Fields Forever, you have I Am the Walrus, and you have a couple other ones on there that I can't think of off the top of my head. I think All You Need Is Love is on this album. Can't remember right now. It's been a little while since I've listened to it, but I remember this was actually the first Beatles record I ever bought, and I got it at a South Philly Italian market festival thing, and I saw it and I was like, Mom, oh my god, I gotta get it. And yeah, so Magical Mystery Tour was the first ever record I got of the Beatles, but it's not my favorite album by theirs. It's just there's some good songs on it. It's definitely below mid. above mid and definitely below or above irrelevant. Sorry, I just got my directions all messed up. But yeah, I think Magical Mystery Tour it fits pretty well right here in B tier. Next album I'm going to put on this list, I'm going to put A Hard Day's Night in C tier. I don't really think there's much here, and honestly, I'm going to have to pull up the discography again. Let's see, A Hard Day's Night. I can't remember much of what's on here. A Hard Day's Night's good. Tell Me Why's good. I'll Cry Instead. I should have known better. It's all right. I'm just happy to dance with you. Or I'm just happy to dance, or whatever that's called. And I Love Her. You know, again, there's nothing to me that is super, super strong here. Yeah, there's a couple. Like, I'll Cry Instead's alright, Tell Me Why's alright, and I Love Her's alright. None of these, to me, are anything above mid, really. This is, to me, the Beatles were just in a movie phase, and they had to make an album for the movie they were making. I just felt like it wasn't too inspired as an album. They were really just trying to fire for the movie. They were going right at that. So, to me, alright. It's not the worst. It's not as bad as these, and not that these are really bad, but it's not as, bad as them. So I'm gonna put it in mid. The next thing I'm gonna put in mid is With the Beatles. I can't remember much of this album, but I know for a fact it's better than the ones I have in D tier. With the Beatles. Let's see what their track list is here. See what we got. It Won't Be Long's good. All I've Got to Do is alright. All My Loving's pretty good. Don't Bother Me's okay. Little Child's alright. Till There Was You is alright. Please Mr. Postman is pretty good. Roll Over Beethoven, Hold Me Tight, fantastic. You Really Got a Hold on Me, it's good. I Want to Be Your Man is good. Devil in Her Heart's good. Money is great. Not a Second Time. So you got more good stuff here. That's why I'm not putting it in D tier. But again, it's honestly just as forgetful to me as these, except for a couple of the standouts on it. So I think where it's at is okay. But really, there's not too much else to talk about with this one, because, it is what it is. Now, I'm pulling up Rubber Soul in the background, that track list, just because I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. Shoot me, I know, that's one I need to remember, but I'm going to put Rubber Soul in B tier. I think Rubber Soul is the Beatles starting to really find their identity, and you got some really strong ones on here, like Michelle, Norwegian Wood, Girl. Let's see what else is on here. We've got, I don't know why I've just seen a face is showing up. I feel like that's on Help, is it not? I don't know why it's showing up on this list I'm looking at. I'm looking at a list here, and it's trying to tell me that I've just seen a Faces First. But anyway, the ones I know that are on there, like Girl, Michelle, Norwegian Wood, In My Life. There's some good songs on here, but that's why I think it's just good. I don't think it's great. One of my favorite Beatles songs is Girl, so maybe we could consider that great, but the whole album itself I feel like it's the Beatles finally finding their identity. Now, everything below this are some of my favorite Beatles albums of all time, and it's going to be hard to pick fully between them. There are two that I know where I want to put them, and I'm just going to put the first one in first. Rubber Soul is an A tier. Now, for some Beatles fans, that's like a travesty. Some people think it should belong in S tier. I think it is a perfect A tier album. There are some fantastic songs on it. Side one of this album is just fantastic. It really is. I even love what they did where they had some sitar in, I don't know why I can't think of this song right now. But then you got things like Here, There, and Everywhere, Eleanor Rigby. You got some really, really strong stuff on this album. So I think it's A tier because S tier is like perfect stuff. This album, there's a couple of parts of it where I get bored listening to it. And for that, I don't think it qualifies for like the perfect album. There's a couple on this list that I do, but I don't know if this one quite frankly does. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. I have a Schnauzer Poodle mix and he just freaks out about everything. Anyway, up next we got a couple more here. I'm gonna go with Help. I forgot to place this one, but I think it's a B tier album. It's good. It's not the best. I need to look up the track list for this one again because I can't remember all of it, but let's see what they got here. Help's great. I Need You's great. Ticket to Ride is great. The Night Before is great. Another Girl. I don't really remember this one. Act Naturally. They're gonna put me in the movies. Always loved that one. You Got to Hide Your Love Away. Okay, I'm changing my opinion. Help is actually an A tier album. Almost all the songs on this, and I forgot some of them, but almost all the songs on this album, Yesterday, I've Just Seen a Face, Dizzy Miss Lizzy, Tell Me What You See, all of them. It's a great album. Yeah, it's a great album. Sorry, I got people screaming in my background today. But yeah, it's really all around, it's a great album. There's not much here that I don't like, so I think A tier is a good spot for it. And I'm a little upset with myself for even previously qualifying it for B tier, because this is just a really good album. So now we got some of the best here. I'm gonna go with the weakest of them. You got Please Please Me. It's an A tier. Please Please Me is the debut album of the Beatles, and it's firing on all cylinders for a first album. Let's look at that track list too. You got a lot of strong stuff here. Please Please Me is great. I Saw Her Standing There is great. Misery is great. Chains is great. Love Me Do is great. Anna Go to Him is great. Ask Me Why is great. P.S. I Love You. Literally like all this stuff. Baby It's You, Twist and Shout. It's a classic album. It's the Beatles discovering themselves for the first time, and they are firing on all cylinders. They're hot off the press. They're a great group, and this is a great album reflecting that. So yeah, it's not S tier. It should be. It's like their first album, but it's not. There's other stuff here that I think is better. Yeah, we got some of the greats here, and now this is where it's going to get completely biased, honestly, because some people are going to say one's better than the other, and honestly, I think all of these are S tier. So we're gonna start by putting every single one of these in S tier, but the hard part is going to be which ones go where in S tier. So if you're not watching and you're just listening, I just put Abbey Road, Let It Be, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and the White Album in S tier. Now, you know, again, some of the biggest Beatle fans will tell you that Abbey Road is one of the weakest because they weren't all collaborating together. I'm not one of those people. I could tell you for certainty where I'm going to place that one, but I am going to wait for that for a little bit because I have more to talk about. There's some people that are going to say Sgt. Pepper's is the best album of all time, which I get. Very experimental album, but every single song on there is a banger. To me, it's a perfect album. Let It Be. You have the Beatles, which, and it wasn't because Get Back, let me just clarify this. Get Back was fantastic because you got to watch them create these songs. It's not that's why it's in the S tier for me. It's just, this is one of the most memorable Beatles albums to me. You have some of the most beautiful songs. And now watching Get Back makes me realize how amazing it is that these guys created them. Like, Let It Be. Paul McCartney woke up from a dream and he's just like, oh, what is this? I'm gonna play around with this. Like, it's just amazing how they created perfect songs, like literally perfect songs in a couple weeks because they were going to perform a live concert on the roof. It is just, knowing that makes me solidify that it's S tier. It was S tier for me already, but like knowing the story of how this album was made just makes it all that much more special. So Let It Be is, you know, obviously an S tier. And then lastly is the White Album. I think this is probably going to be the most controversial one on this list because I know some people that'll put White Album down here. White Album to me is very special. I just love that White Album is experimenting with everything. It's the Beatles in their prime, and yeah, there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes when this album was created because it is a long album. But other than a couple really weird ones like Revolution 9 and some of the like Wild Honey Pie and things like that, other than those, there is so much to love about this album. It's one of the most influential albums of all time. and really, it's really special to me. So yeah, I understand completely that some people may view it lower, but to me, it's an S tier. So now the fun part of this tier list is going to be ranking these S tiers, because I love them all, but we got to figure out where they're going, because yeah, up to here, everything is in A tier. Like, there's no order. Revolver, Help, Please Please Me, they're all kind of on the same list. But when you get to the S tier, this is where I'm gonna get nitpicky, because I kind of want to go by the top 4 albums of all time in the right order. So this is gonna be a bit of a controversial one for some people, but I think it's pretty unanimous for people who aren't like the biggest Beatles fans, that, you know, just love their music overall, but aren't like, you know, obsessive over them, if that makes any sense. I'm putting Abbey Road at the top of the list. It's the best album they've ever made. And it's not only the best album they've ever made, it's one of the best albums ever made on the planet. I still think there's a couple that are a little bit better as far as albums go in the world, but Abbey Road is the best Beatles album, and it's the best album of you know, this time frame at least. So, okay. Every single song on this album, every single one, is fantastic. I'm not going to run through the whole track list here, but every single one is great. Side 1 is awesome, but honestly, Side 2 is where it's at. Side 2, even though it was recorded separate because the Beatles were not even getting along at this point, it is just the Beatles firing on all cylinders. If they made an album after this, it probably would have been even better than Abbey Road, honestly, because this is peak Beatles, but it's also end of Beatles. So peak but end, you know, it's like, it's kind of a bummer. I just, nothing can describe the feeling that I have when I play songs like the whole medley on the back on drums, or just listen to it. It brings back so many memories in my life. This album is just great, and my God, the album artwork for this is just fantastic. I just gotta look at it up close, because it's, you know, it really is something special. There's not much like this album. Man, and you can't even really see it on camera, so I'm actually gonna stop doing that, but it's just influential in every way. The album artwork is great. Every song on it, even the goofy ones like Maxwell's Silver Hammer and I Want You, She's So Heavy, like, even those, they're just a step above anything else Beatles. They really are. It's, oh man, it's just such a great album. So from here, we just have a little bit to move around because there's not much else. I kind of like where a couple of things are here, so I'm only going to move around one, and this is also going to be controversial, but I think Let It Be is better than Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Let It Be, and I already talked a lot about it, but Let It Be is just such a marvel of an album. Every song has a cool story to tell, and then this Get Back documentary that came out just made it better. But for me, it was already an S tier because it's one of my most favorite albums ever, really. Every song on it is great, and even the ones they didn't include that were recorded during these sessions, like Don't Let Me Down, oh my God. And for that matter, what's the other one that didn't make it to Hey Jude? Hey Jude's another one that was made around this time, and it's not even on the album, but you have Don't Let Me Down, you have Hey Jude, that are, oh my God, amazing. And then you have this actual album, this studio album that came out, and it's just so good. And I love that hidden in there are actual live sessions from the Get Back rooftop performance, which is so cool. Every song on here is great, man. Every single one. I've Got a Feeling, you know, I'm trying to think, I just kind of blanked out. Let It Be, obviously. The Long and Winding Road, one of the best songs of all time. You got so much here. Across the Universe, which I love in the Get Back documentary, how they're all talking about that song and they're like, okay, this is John Lennon's lovey-dovey song. It's just funny because they talk so little of that song, but it's one of the best Beatles songs of all time. Like, it's just crazy, man. This to me, it is honestly, it's close for me between this being my favorite Beatles album of all time, but it is to me just a step below Abbey Road. And I'm at this point, I'm just talking like if Abbey Road's here, Let It Be is like just right there, like right there. But I think because of the medley and stuff in Abbey Road's just a little bit stronger. Now, up next, we have Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album. These are the last two we got to figure out. I already talked about Let It Be a lot earlier, so I'm done with that, but... Okay, so here's the thing. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, while it being one of my all-time favorite albums ever, definitely one of my all-time favorite Beatles albums, I don't know. I'm really stuck of where to put it, whether it's better than the White Album or not. Like, I like what they're going for in Sgt. Pepper's, and I love the album artwork for Sgt. Pepper's, but like, there's just a couple songs in here that they're a little too psychedelic for me, and they're also a little too experimental-ish for me. It's very close. It's very close. I think I'm gonna leave it though where it is, and it kind of hurts me because the White Album is such an iconic album to me personally, whereas, yeah, Sgt. Pepper's is, but... Yeah, I just think overall it's the better all-around package. It's the Beatles finally figuring out their identity. As an album, this is like when they were like, okay, this is who we are. We're going to be really creative. We're going to make whatever we want to make. And they opened that up with a true explosion of color being Sgt. Pepper's. There's just a couple songs on here that I'm not the biggest fans of, but there's also some songs on here that are some of the biggest highlights ever. One that is always slept on, I think, on this album is She's Leaving Home. Every time I hear that song, and I'm not a parent yet, but every time I hear that song, it brings tears to my eye. Every single time. Because it's so just sad and real, and I don't know. But there's I don't know what I'm gonna say about this album other than it's experimental, it's psychedelic, it's not my favorite out of the S tiers, but it's a step ahead of the White Album. It really is. The track list is shorter here. It's honestly it's quality over quantity, whereas here is quantity over quality. But that being said, it's almost all quality here too. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this here. Sgt. Pepper's, for some people, it may be entirely sacrilegious that I'm saying it's not as good as Let It Be and Abbey Road, but it's my list, it's my opinion. And I was actually just having a conversation the other day with someone about this, who they were really shocked when I said that it's not my favorite Beatles album, but it's just not. It really isn't. It's one of my all-time favorite Beatles album. That's why it's an S tier, but it's not my favorite Beatles album. That's because Abbey Road is. And then last but not least, we already talked about it a little bit, but the White Album. The White Album is... I want to place it ahead of Sgt. Pepper's, I really do, because it's really down to preference of the music in it. That's why these two are so hard to rank next to each other, because personally, the White Album just has some more standout songs for me that I like. I love some of the Beatles in this getting bluesy. I love some of the Beatles in this getting hard rocky in Helter Skelter and Your Blues. I guess you could argue that Your Blues is a blues song, but I think it's more of a rock song. But then you have them experimenting with like westerns, with like Rocky Raccoon, which is one of my all-time favorites. You have political satire with Piggies. You have just everything. It really encompasses everything. It's the Beatles really, I think, being the most creative, whereas this is the Beatles finally sinking into their identity for the first time. So they were really creative, just in a slightly different way, in a colorful and psychedelic way here. But this is the Beatles saying, let's just make an album where we just try all the genres. And I loved that. This kind of reminds me of the Epcot of the Beatles. It's really a great album. And I get the argument that some people think it would be a C tier. I get it, because there's a lot of wacky stuff on here too. I mentioned a couple of them: Revolution 9, Wild Honey Pie. But honestly, I like it because it's experimental, it's fun, it's weird, and it's right. I like music like that. I always have, and I think the White Album really stands out. It's one of the most unique albums on planet Earth to begin with, but that being said, for it to be a Beatles album and for them to nail a lot of genres, I think it's really special. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna put it, and that's my list. So yeah, some of my opinions here may have been controversial, especially if you're a big-time Beatles fan. I am a big-time Beatles fan, but I know there's some that are probably way bigger fans than I am, so love to know what your list looks like. If you could, let me know down in the comments. Love to see what you guys think, because everyone's different. Some people might put Beatles for Sale as their best album. I'd be really surprised if anyone feels that way, but you know, anything is possible. We're living in a free country, so yeah, that's my list. If you liked this video, I am going to do more tier ranking. I don't know what I'm going to do more tier ranking of, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you want to see. Let me know if you liked it. If you hated it, let me know. And yeah, subscribe if you want. Until the next one, peace out.